Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me this afternoon. My name is Dina Palmer. I'm one of your member relations specialists here at Okie 811. Today, we're going to be covering the locate request and additional notifications you may receive as a member. But before we get started, let's go over a few housekeeping items. Today's presentation has been pre-recorded, so I can spend the live portion of our webinar focusing on your questions and interacting with you in chat. I'll be joining you live at the end for Q&A and today's Amazon gift card drawing. If you have questions at any point during the presentation, please use the chat or Q&A feature to submit them. I'll be keeping an eye on those and will answer as many as possible during the live Q&A. As a thank you for attending today's webinar, you'll also be entered into a drawing for a $25 Amazon gift card. To enter, please type your name, email address, and company name in the chat. We'll spin the wheel and announce the winner immediately following the Q&A session. A recording of this webinar will be available on our Okie 811 YouTube channel and in our Learning Hub at okie811.org within the next 24 to 48 hours. Now let's get started. Okay, so let's start with the scenario. Imagine it's Tuesday morning, an excavator reaches out asking why no one has responded to their locate request, but after checking your system, you realize that your company never received the ticket. This is exactly the type of situation the audit report can help you prevent. Let's take a look at how. So every morning after midnight, Okie 811 generates an audit report for each of your dispatch codes. This report lists all of the requests and notifications that were processed for you the previous day. I like to think of the audit report as a daily checklist. Instead of wondering whether you received every ticket you were supposed to receive, this report gives you something you can compare against your own records. The audit report is one of my favorite tools because it gives you peace of mind. It's a quick check that can help you catch missing tickets before they turn into a missed response or calls from excavators wondering what happened. So now let's talk about how to actually use the audit report. The good news is this process only takes a few minutes, and once it becomes part of your daily routine, it's pretty simple. First, each morning you'll receive your audit report, which, as we mentioned, includes all of the tickets processed for your dispatch codes the previous day. Next, you want to compare that report against the tickets that your company actually received. You're simply making sure everything on the report made it into your system. If you notice that a ticket listed on the audit report is missing, that's your opportunity to catch the issue before it becomes a missed response. You can use the queue feature in the Okie 811 Legacy portal to retransmit the missing ticket, or if you need assistance, Member Services is always happy to help. If I could recommend one daily habit for every member, it would be reviewing your audit report each morning. Now that we've talked about how to make sure you're receiving all of your tickets, let's take a step back and look at what a locate request actually is. Understanding these basics will make the rest of today's webinar much easier because every ticket type we're going to discuss builds on this process. So let's get started with the basics. At its core, a locate request is simply a notification that someone plans to excavate near underground facilities. Its purpose is to notify member companies so they have the opportunity to identify and mark any underground facilities before excavation begins. Every locate request contains important information, including who is doing the work, where the excavation will take place, when the work is expected to begin, and details about the scope of the project. That information helps members determine whether they have facilities in the area and what action needs to be taken. One thing that's important to remember is that members don't receive every locate request submitted to Okie 811. Notifications are based on the assets you've registered with us. If your facilities are in the affected area, you will receive the notification. Finally, every locate request is assigned a unique ticket number. Think of that ticket number as a reference number for that job. Whenever you need to look up a ticket, provide a positive response, or discuss a locate request with an excavator, that ticket number is what ties everything together. This is probably the most important section of today's webinar because these are the ticket types that you'll see every day. Some of them require immediate action and some continue existing work, while others are simply used in special situations. Understanding the difference will help you know exactly what each ticket type is telling you and what your next step should be. So let's start with the one that you'll see more than any other, and that's the normal locate request. This is a standard notification sent to facility operators whenever an excavator plans to work near your underground facilities. Its purpose is simple: to give you enough notice to identify and protect your underground assets before the excavation begins. One of the most important things to remember about normal locate requests is the notification period. Oklahoma law requires a minimum of 48 hours notice, excluding the notification date, weekends, and holidays. For example, if an excavator submits a ticket on Tuesday and requests the earliest possible start date, Tuesday is simply the notification date, Wednesday becomes notice day 1, Thursday becomes notice day 2, which means the earliest work to begin date would be Friday. Normal locate requests are the most common ticket type that you'll receive, and they always require a positive response before the work to begin date and time. And remember, that work to begin date and time can be found on the locate request. Before we move on, I want to point out one special situation involving normal locate requests. Occasionally, you may receive what's called a large project. Even though it appears as a normal locate request, it's actually part of a larger excavation project that's been divided into multiple tickets to better manage the work area. You'll know it's a large project because the remarks section will identify it as a large project, as you can see in the example here. Whenever you receive one of these requests, be sure to review the remarks section carefully. That's where you'll find the information identifying it as a large project. They may also provide coordinates and information about how to request mapping files. There's one very important thing I want to mention about the positive response for large projects. The partially marked large project positive response is intended to be used for these ticket types. Before selecting this response, though, make sure that you have worked with the excavator to establish a marking schedule and that the agreement has been documented. And you also want to provide comments for this positive response because they are required. The key takeaway is that being a large project doesn't automatically qualify the use of this positive response. The documented marking schedule is what qualifies it. The next two ticket types you may receive are remark and extend. Both are used when an excavation project is continuing beyond the original ticket life, but there is one important difference between them. So a remark request tells you that the existing locate marks need to be refreshed before the excavation can continue. An extend request tells you that the project is continuing, but the existing marks are still visible. The reason this distinction is important for facility operators is because extend requests have their own positive response. Using the correct positive response helps communicate the status of your facilities accurately while also saving time when additional marking isn't needed. So the key thing to remember is this: a remark means that new markings are needed. An extend means the project is continuing, but the existing markings are still good. Be sure to utilize the ticket type extend positive response for those extend tickets. This response helps save your locators time and makes responding quick and easy. Now let's cover emergency locate requests. Emergency requests are different from other ticket types we've discussed because they're an exception to the standard 48-hour notification requirement. These requests should only be used when excavation must begin because there's an emergency that threatens life, health, or property. It's important to remember that this isn't simply a way to expedite work or avoid the normal notification period. A genuine emergency must exist. Even though the notice period is different, a positive response is still required. Let's take a look at a few examples of situations that may qualify as emergency requests. Some emergency situations are pretty straightforward. If there's a gas leak, a water main break, or a down power line, it's easy to understand why excavation needs to begin immediately. But not every emergency is that obvious. For example, a broken fence around a daycare may not seem like an emergency at first glance. However, if that damaged fence creates an immediate safety hazard for children, it could represent a threat to life or health. Or imagine a tree that's been damaged during a storm and is leaning toward a house or utility line. Excavation may be needed immediately to safely remove the tree before additional damage occurs. When an emergency locate request is submitted, the caller is asked to verify if there's an endangerment to life, health, or property. And they're also asked how much time they can provide before their excavation begins. This is in an effort to help give members as much time as possible to respond while still addressing the emergency. Next up are repeat notices. This includes both second and third notices. These aren't new locate requests. Instead, these are a follow-up notification sent under specific circumstances. A member company may receive a repeat notice for one of two reasons. The first is when a required positive response hasn't been provided through the portal. And the second is when the excavator lets us know they haven't received an adequate response or they received a confusing response from the member. If either of those situations occurs, a second notice may be issued. If no response is received for the second notice, or if additional clarification is required, a third notice might be issued. It's also important to remember that additional notice fees apply to both second and third notices, and no member is exempt from those additional fees. So responding promptly can help avoid unnecessary follow-up notices. One thing I do want to point out is that if you've already provided a positive response, the excavator can't simply go online and request another notice. In that situation, they have to contact OKI 811 directly so we can review what the member has already provided. Now we'll discuss the cancel requests and corrections. So a cancel request lets members know that the excavator has canceled the job before the work to begin date and time. The nice thing about cancel requests is that OKI 811 automatically places a positive response for you, so no additional action is required from the member. Correction requests are a little different. These are used when non-scope of work information on an existing ticket needs to be corrected or updated. When a correction request is created, OKI 811 automatically places a response on the original ticket. That means you don't need to respond to that original request. Instead, you'll simply review the correction request and respond to that ticket. So the key takeaway for these ticket types is that a cancel request requires no action on your part because the system automatically responds for you. And a correction request requires you to respond only to the corrected ticket, not the original request. So now we've covered the ticket types that most members see every day. Let's take a look at a few additional notifications you may receive. These aren't your typical locate requests, but they're still an important part of the notification system. Some require action while others are simply informational. The important thing is recognizing what you've received and understanding what, if anything, you need to do next. Let's get started with demolition requests. A demolition request is unique because it's actually just the first step in the demolition process, not the notification for the excavation itself. Members must receive at least 7 days notice before demolition work begins. This advance notice gives facility operators time to prepare for the demolition and take any action that may be necessary before the structure is removed. Once that 7-day notification period has been satisfied, the excavator must then submit a separate normal locate request before the actual demolition work begins. Think of the demolition request as a notification that demolition is coming, and the normal locate request is a notification that the excavation work is ready to begin. A positive response is required on the demolition notice. Next are damage report notices. Unlike the ticket types we've discussed so far, a damage report notice isn't requesting a locate. Instead, it's notifying members that someone has reported damage to an underground facility. If it is your facility that they are reporting damage for, please reach out to the caller directly to provide further direction. The key takeaway for damage reports is that these are just informational and they do not require a positive response. Next, take a look at design and survey requests. Design and survey requests are different from locate requests we discussed so far because they're used during the planning stage of a project. These requests allow engineers, surveyors, architects, or project planners to gather information about underground facilities before construction plans are finalized. One important thing to remember is that design and survey request is not authorization to begin digging. If excavation is going to take place later, a separate normal locate request must be submitted before any excavation begins. Members have up to 14 calendar days to respond to a design survey request. Depending on your company's policies, that response may include providing maps or marking your facilities. On a design survey request, it is used to support planning, not excavation. And one thing I really want to point out is that while the requester may ask for field markings or maps, it's up to the member to ultimately decide which one you're able to provide. When maps are provided, there is a specific positive response available that lets the requester know your company responded by providing maps rather than physical markings. Now let's take a look at another notification that helps members coordinate with excavators, and that's going to be the pre-excavation meeting request. Pre-excavation meeting requests are used when an excavator wants to meet with facility operators before excavation begins. These are to discuss the project, identify potential concerns, or coordinate work. This meeting gives everyone an opportunity to ask questions, discuss the scope, and address any issues before excavation starts. One thing that makes these requests unique is there are 2 dedicated positive responses available specifically for pre-excavation meetings. If your company plans to attend the meeting, you'll use the will attend positive response. If your company will not be attending, you would use the will not be attending positive response. These requests are really all about communication and coordination before excavation begins. So remember that you're responding to the meeting invitation and not responding to a locate request. If you receive a pre-excavation meeting request, we highly encourage you to try and attend. These are really great ways to have open communication between excavators and facility operators. The final notification we'll cover is a wildland fire break notice. These are emergency notices sent when wildland fire poses imminent danger to underground facilities. When a local fire department contacts Okie 811, we notify affected members so they can begin coordinating with emergency responders as quickly as possible. These fire break notices are delivered as an emergency locate request. They don't necessarily fall under a locate request unless a fire break is needed and there are underground facilities in the fire break area. Their function is primarily a communication tool. If you receive one of these notifications, your first priority is communication. Reach out to the on-site contact as soon as possible once you receive this notice. And I really want to emphasize that safety always comes first. If your personnel are responding in the field, they should follow your company's emergency procedures and coordinate with the emergency responders or the command center. Fortunately, these notifications are very uncommon, but it's important to understand their purpose in the event that you ever receive one. Before we wrap up, let's do a quick reference recap and answer one of the most common questions that we receive. My goal is that when you leave today's webinar, you'll feel confident recognizing the notifications you receive, understanding what they mean, and knowing what action is expected. So let's take a look at this quick reference guide that summarizes the notifications we've covered today. When you receive a notification from Okie 811, one of the first questions you should ask yourself is, does my company need to take action? And as you can see, on most of them you do. So on the left are the notifications that require some type of member action, whether that's submitting a positive response or responding to a correction ticket. These are the notifications that you want to pay close attention to because they require your company's participation. On the right are notifications that don't require additional member action, and as we can see, there's only 2. So cancel requests are automatically responded to by the system, and remember those damage reports are just informational. You don't have to memorize every notification type, but if you can identify the most common ones that you receive and what action you need to take, you're already well on your way to handling them correctly. Next, let's cover one of the most common questions that we receive, especially around holidays. And this is one of the most common questions we receive, and it really causes a lot of confusion. And that is, how can the work to begin date fall on a holiday or a weekend? The answer really comes down to understanding the notification period. So for this example, let's fast forward to Christmas 2026. So let's say that the excavator submits their ticket on Monday, December 21st. So remember that the date the ticket is submitted is the notification date, and it does not count towards the required notice period. Tuesday would be notice day 1 and Wednesday would be notice day 2. Once these 2 business days have been satisfied, the minimum notification requirement has been met. That means that the excavator could choose Thursday, Christmas Eve as the earliest work to begin date, or they could even choose Christmas Day or the following weekend or any later date within that ticket's valid time frame. Choosing a holiday or a weekend as a work to begin date doesn't mean that members were expected to locate on that day. You actually should have completed it before the work to begin date. It simply means the required notice period has already been completed, and that's when the excavator plans on starting their work. So now let's take a look at what happens when a holiday actually falls during the notification period. That the excavator waits one more day and submits their ticket on Tuesday, December 22nd. That would make Wednesday, December 23rd, notice day 1. And normally Thursday would be notice day 2, but because Christmas Eve is observed as a holiday, it doesn't count towards the notification period. The same is true for Christmas Day, Saturday, and Sunday because that's the weekend. So then that would make Monday notice day 2, completing that required notification period. So then the earliest work to begin date becomes Tuesday, December 29th. As you can see, the timing of when an excavator calls in a request around holidays can greatly affect how long they need to wait. Most excavators are aware of this, so you will typically see things get really busy on certain days so they can avoid the longer wait to get started. Before we wrap up today's webinar, I'd like to leave you with a few final tips that can help make managing your notifications a little easier. First, make reviewing your audit report part of your daily routine. It's one of the easiest ways to catch missing responses, identify potential issues, and stay ahead of your workload. Second, take a moment to recognize what type of notification you received. As we discussed today, understanding the notification type will help determine what action, if any, is needed. Keep an eye on your response timeframes. Knowing how much time you have to respond helps prevent unnecessary repeat notices and keeps those projects moving. Be sure that you take advantage of the queue feature in the Legacy portal if you need to resend any tickets. And finally, remember that you're never on your own. If you ever have questions or you aren't sure how to handle something, don't hesitate to reach out to us because we're always here to help. Okay, perfect. Thank you guys. Let me go to chat and see if we had any questions today. If you guys want to use a QR code, you can take our survey. We really appreciate the feedback, and I'm also going to put a link for this survey in the chat. And this webinar actually came from a member suggestion from one of the surveys to learn more about the locate requests and the notifications you receive. So that feedback is really helpful to make sure that we're presenting the information that you guys really want to see. So we do appreciate that. And you do get entered into another chance to win a gift card every time you complete a survey. Thank you guys so much for joining me this afternoon. I hope that you guys have a wonderful afternoon. Stay cool out there. Thank you again.